beside the point. We got through it. We're here. It's funny, ain't it, Brother Grant? We're the grown-ups now. I remember. I know he remembers. They'd have church in my house many times in Butler. We'd run out there by the tracks. He tried to steal my cover hauls a few times. He was a little older than us, and I could never catch him. But looking around, it's funny, ain't it, how God brought us all back together. Many years later, we went to Kentucky, and now we're all serving God. Man, if my daddy was alive, I know he'd be so happy. He'd be so happy to see all his kids together, Jeanette. Now we just got to get Patty and them in here. But God's working, ain't he? I got a half brother and sister need to get in church. We got a lot of work to do. But I begin to see, I was listening to a message that Charlie preached. I pop him in all the time when I'm driving. And this was a message he preached back in 2016. And he preached in 1 Peter about joy unspeakable. And I began to think, as a Christian, there's not many Christians today that look like they got joy unspeakable. And I wonder what that was. And God began to deal with my heart. And if I could put a thought in your mind tonight, it's okay with being okay. And I know that don't make sense right now, but we're going to start out talking about the flesh, and we're going to turn it into spiritual if God would have his way. I hope he would bless. I'm sure he will bless, but we're going to listen to what he would have to say. He's kind of detoured me, so I'm just going to do what he wants me to do and see what he has in store. But, we begin to look around today, and if you begin to look in the world, nobody is okay with being where they're at in the world. But just about anybody you look at in church is okay with where they're at spiritually. And God began to put something on my mind, and if you guys want to turn to it, in Hebrews chapter 11, we're going to read a few scriptures. There's one we're going to look at that's important tonight, and I believe as Christians that God already did the work, guys. It seems like Christians today think they can walk right into heaven. They don't got to be saved, or you got to earn it to get there. It seems like more people work over and over and over to stay more saved. They don't enjoy salvation. Do you realize that salvation is free? It's a gift. I drove by the Salvation Army today, and God kind of put something on my mind. I thought it was neat, so I'm going to share it with you. There was a huge amount of cars parked in front of the Salvation Army, and you go in there to spend money, when you could come in here and get free salvation and be in God's army. I thought, man, what in the world is wrong with the world today is everybody is so busy in the world, including some of us, if I'm being honest. Christians have gotten so busy in what the world has to offer, trying to get more and more and more, that we forgot about our spirit. I'll be honest today, a lot of us look pretty good on the side of eating. We're none hurting to eat. There's a few of us in here that's skinny, but most of us are a little thicker than we should be. But if we looked at your spirit, what's it look like today? Would you have an overweight spirit, or would it be on the skinny side? If I'm being honest, there's a lot of times that I don't do all I should do for God. And he's put a burden upon my heart. Be honest, I don't know what's going on, but I haven't been able to sleep lately. I see every hour of the night. I started a couple days ago calling my brother, and we try to meet at the shop early, and we've been studying together. The Lord has been waking me up with him on his mind. I've been going to sleep with him on my mind. It seems like I can't sleep anymore because we ain't doing enough to get those out there in here and get them saved. To be honest, there's a lot of people playing church today. And the problem with that is we may never find you out, but one day God will. That funeral hit me hard. I don't know why, but probably because there was a lot of lost people. And as a preacher, when you're standing up here, God gives you a way to kind of show you who's hurting and who needs him. And I was really troubled to just see these people hurting so bad, and knowing that I'm not doing my part to get them in here, Brother Grant. I'm not doing all that I could do to get those lost in here and get them saved. And to be honest, it began to hurt. I began to have some tears come in my eyes because I got lost in my very house. My own daughter is lost. And what am I doing? Because a lot of times when I go home at night, she don't see the best part of Dad, if I can be honest, because the hustles and bustles of the day have got me down. And time I get home, she sees the worst end of her daddy. And I'm supposed to be a preacher and a light to my own children, and a lot of times they see the worst in us. And God has begun to work on my heart, and he's begun to show me that no matter how bad it gets here on earth, if you're saved, you should have joy unspeakable. You should go home and you should show them that you are saved and there's something better. Do you realize about 2 nights ago, me and my wife had to sit down and have a talk with my daughter that I never never thought I would have to talk to her about. But I had to let her know that if she dies the way she is, heaven will not be her home. And that is scary, but I would rather tell her that now than her go on living the way she is and get hit by a truck at a school bus stop and go into eternity and be in hell. But that's just the reality of the way the world is today. If we don't stand up, stand for God, like when He sent His Son and He went all the way to the cross for me and you, then we're not doing our jobs. But we're going to read a few scriptures here, and we're going to start in Hebrews 11:23. And it says, by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandments. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Listen here, this is what we want to look at. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect to the recompense of the reward. Now, if you think about that, Moses, he could have been a very prosperous man. He could have been, as Charlie says, one of the up and uppers. He could have probably had 3 or 4 houses, 10 or 12 wives. He could have probably had everything that the world had to offer. But he says, no, I will not. I will choose to suffer with God's people because I know the reward one day will be much greater. But I look around in the world today and you look at people that call themselves Christians and it don't add up. What I'm saying is I can't say whether they're going to heaven or hell, but their fruit does not add up with what the Bible tells us to do if we're a Christian. And you know, I begin to think about Levi in the Bible. Everybody knows Levi is Matthew. And I begin to think on him, and if you studied him, you know that he was a tax collector. He was a bad man. He was probably very hated. And I begin to think when Jesus called upon him. Now listen, Peter and all them other guys, they had other roads to take. They could have went back to fishing. But Matthew, all he knew was tax collecting. And I'm sure he probably thought as he was going through that if I give in and go with God, he's getting on the bankruptcy list. But he went anyway. And he began to go with him, and all he took with him was his pen. And if you think about it, Matthew completely sold out and followed Jesus. He decided that it was better to go on and follow Jesus because he would take care of him anyway. What I'm saying tonight is I believe that there's some of us in here that's not completely sold out. I believe we're still trying to hang on to the world and try to reap the benefits of Christ too. Now I know that when you look around, we're guilty. How many's guilty of looking at someone else and saying, if they're going to heaven in the way they live, I'm okay the way I am? Brother, do you realize when judgment hits, that's between you and the Lord? You won't be able to stand up there and say, well, Brother Charlie said, or I heard Brother Matt stand up there and say, or I seen Burley do. He's going to say, no. It's between me and you, Bubba.
That's right. That's right.
But today, people seem like they don't fear him anymore. If I'm being honest, we need to fear the Lord. Now, if you're saved, it's a different kind of fear, but it's almost like a respect. Even when I was 18, 19 years old, there's no way I would have ever went home and cussed in front of my dad. Even though I did it out in the world, there's things that I just would not do in front of my parents because I feared the consequences. What do you realize as a Christian? If you get out there and try to live any old way you want, you have to answer to that, to an almighty God. See, sometimes we forget that when you say you're a Christian, what you're basically saying is you're a little baby Jesus. And then he began to put something else on my mind. Now this one, I really liked it. I began to read and I was studying on the donkey that he rode in on. Now this old donkey, he was just a colt. Now think about it now. He didn't use a big old horse. He didn't use no stallion, no working horse, nothing real pretty but a donkey. Why? Because the donkey knew he was just average. And when the Lord called upon him, he wasn't high and mighty. He wasn't boastful. So he was able to do his job. Now here's the good thing. When that donkey went back, boy, what a testimony he had to all the other donkeys. What'd you guys do today? I carried Jesus on my back. See, what I'm saying is some of us are so tied in the world today. We're so tied in to what the world has to offer, we really don't have much of a witness for God. Because see, when he saves us, he calls us to do something, guys. Each and every one of us. And if I'm being honest, if you haven't ever got blessed above where you did when you got saved, if you have to go back all the time to remember when you got joy, you're not where you need to be. I got a question for you tonight. Are you truly following Jesus? Have you truly hung up the world and said, I'm yours, Lord? Because now think about old Matthew. Levi, when he followed him, he dropped everything he knew. Now, if Jesus saved him and kept him, he can't go back to them old ways, right? Now, Peter and all them, they could have went back to fishing. Just like old Peter got out the boat that day. There's a lot of us still sitting in the boat. There's a lot of us that's probably saved. You come to church, but you really can't tell neither way. If you don't tell us, we don't really know if you're saved. Now, I remember back in the old church, buddy, when they were saved, they were shouting. Me and my brother had a few bobby pins fly out our eyes. Women getting up, jumping around. The men would all be hacking and spit running down their jaws. I remember these days. What I'm saying is we can get back there. Let's get back to serving the Lord. Let's get back to following Him. Do you realize when He tells us to take up our cross, that's work? What He's saying is lay the world down. Lay all these things aside that's got you so busy that you forgot to follow God. Is any of us just too busy? Do you ever think, man, when I get home I'm going to read the Bible? But time you get there, 10 other things have popped up. Your gas light come on. Tire's low. Need Mountain Dew in the fridge. Ain't got no biscuits to go with the meatloaf. And time you've did all that stopping and you get home, there's no time for God. You ever think maybe the devil just sets them little things in your way? Have you ever tripped over a stumbling block several times, the same one? You know what that means? You're not moving. You're not growing. God is ever changing. He's ever wanting you to blossom and grow. He doesn't want us stagnant. But as we look around in the churches today, now I'm just talking as a whole, our church is really turning on. But I promise you this, the more that it turns on, the more the devil's going to try to hinder us, guys. He's going to start trying to pick each one of us apart. Brother Billy's having a good day. Tiff is sure to have a bad one. If I have a good day, I'm going to go home and she's going to have a bad one. Brother Charlie's even going to have bad days. Josh, you may not feel good tomorrow, brother. That's just how the world works. But we got to realize that one day we're all going to be better. One day we're going home. I'll be able to come sit with you for 1,000 years, Jared. We ain't going to have to worry about the kids being sick. We ain't going to have to worry about the bills not being paid, because guess what? My house is paid for in heaven. Brother, I don't care if it's a trailer that ain't got no skirting on it and the tires are flat. I'm going. All I want to do is make it there. Everybody's talking about the mansions they have and the Lord's going to put this here and that there. I just want to make it, Brother Grant. I just want to go. You know, I don't understand God. I don't understand Jesus. You know what drives me right now? I want to see them, but I want to go see my dad again. I want to go see my dad, and I want to tell him I made it, that I got saved, because he died with me unsaved. That's something that, you know, you never get back. I get kindly jealous when I see Tiff and Charlie praising the Lord together. Or when I go to my mom's house and I see my dad hugging my brother because he baptized him. See, I don't get to do that here on earth, and that's my fault. I should have got saved sooner. But what I'm saying is there is something that each one of us long for in heaven. Now, I really want to see Jesus. I can't wait. But right now, as far as my flesh can feel, is my dad's up there. I was close to him. Man, I miss him. It's been almost 13 years. It's almost his birthday. And I miss him bad. But at least I get to go see him again. His race is won. What I'm saying is my heart has just been heavy. It's been heavy for the lost. It's been heavy for the youngsters. It's been heavy for the church. And it just seems like every time we turn a leaf, but it will seem like we got it going on, and me and Charlie are talking, we'll say, man, things are going good. And then something will happen. And it seems like the church is upside down again. People are bickering and fighting. And there's an old song they sing, I'm homesick for home. That's an old one, but I remember it. And I know I'm young, but man, am I homesick for home. I'm just tired. I'm tired of talking to people and they're saying, man, I don't feel good and someone's hurt my feelings. Man, when we get to heaven, that stuff's going to be gone.
Oh. Right.
Charlie's going to be sitting eating nanas. If I visit him, I know I'm going to smell the nanas 1,000 miles away. And you know, the more you study heaven, we don't know a lot about it. We know what's not going to be there, but I don't think that the Lord's going to take us up to this big old place and put us with people we don't know. I'd say He'll probably put us all together. Jeff's welding shop will be over there somewhere. I'll be trimming the nana trees. Brother Zach will be able to run. His feet ain't going to hurt no more. Think about that. It's just exciting to know that no matter how bad it gets here, Brother Jerry, no matter how sick we get, how depressed we get, how tired we are, how when we go home and the kids have been bad all day and you're just so tired you don't even have time for them. And then about the time you get ready to do something with your kids, the phone rings and another sissy's passed away in the church and we got to go. One day, it's going to be all worth it. One day when we get there, I just can't wait to hear Him say, welcome in, son. Welcome in. You've been faithful over few things. I'm going to make you ruler over many. I can't wait for that day to go. But I remember when I was little, I thought it all happened in one day. I thought you either went to heaven or hell, and that was it, and it was over. But man, there's so much more.
Yeah. Right.
There's so much more that goes on. But what I want to tell you today is make sure you're ready to go when He calls upon you. Charlie preached one of the prettiest messages I ever heard yesterday. It was blunt, but it was to the point. And do you realize there's two things that we'll never get away from? That's death and that appointment with Christ. We're all going to answer for everything we did. And I'm just glad to know that old scripture. I told my Uncle Robert today, we was talking a little bit on the phone, and you know that scripture, it says, He forgives our transgressions as far as the east is to the west. I said the problem with us is we forgive people north to south. Eventually we bring it back up. What I'm saying is if you start working north, eventually you go south. And that's what's wrong with us today. We don't forgive like God does. We don't love like God does, but we should. If we would really get back to square one is love. That's what this church is founded on, is love. It ain't founded on looks, because if it was, we'd be in trouble. I'm just being honest. Charlie says it all the time. A lot of us, we doll ourselves up, but he ain't got much to start with. You can only make this look so good. And the bad thing is you can get you an ugly person today and take them to the beauty shop. They'll dial them up. They'll fix them up and straighten it and cut the wrinkles out. But they can't fix the heart. That takes the Lord. That's what's wrong with the kids today is, can I be honest? We take this negativity home. Our children are in their rooms, but they're hearing all the negative things that we say. And then they're trying to fill a void with what the world has to offer and not Christ.
It looks more appealing to them what we offer.
Because I'll be honest, I'm guilty. I'll take it. I'm guilty of going home and giving my kids just the leftovers. Boys, if I told you how hard Pickles has been since he started school, you wouldn't believe me. But it has been rough. It has been rough. But you know what? God's got a plan for that little feller. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I know God's got something for him to do. I mean, he's been rough on us. Katie, they're teaching her everything but God. She's coming home, been in this church since she was in diapers. And comes home and asks me, how do you know what you believe is right? And you try to explain to them. You try to show them what the Bible has to say. They don't want nothing to do with that. What I'm saying is, long story short, we need to change our ways. We need to just be okay with being okay in this world. If you got a little bit to eat, be okay with it. If you got a 90s car, a 2000s car, or an old 65 that's rusted out with a 350 in her and the rods are knocking and you ain't even got a muffler, just be okay with that. Because God's got things in store. What I'm saying is if you really think about it, we're okay with being okay spiritually, but we're not fleshfully.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
What I'm saying is if we, what would be nice is I've noticed is half the church gets on fire at one time, and by the time their fire is over with, the other side gets on fire. It's like a constant. Why can't we all get on fire together? Let's all get on fire together. But I tell you, since they've been singing before church, we've been all a little bit revved up. Don't you guys enjoy that? When you come in, Harry told me, he said, I couldn't help but watch your son stand there Sunday. He said he was just standing there watching us going. I'm telling you, there's something about good gospel music that gets you excited. And when you hear that, you ain't really got time to talk about people. Yeah, just be honest. Like old Charlie says, this thing right here gets you in a lot of trouble. Go around that door, get in the kitchen, and lick the gravy bowl while you're standing here. I'll be honest. In this generation, men gossip as much as women do. You can't even blame the women anymore because men are quicker to tell you than the woman. Now that's a problem. That's a problem when men like to gossip. What we need to do is all get together. You remember back, Charlie preaches it often, the Christians that all get together and they'd talk to 12, 1 in the morning, go to work at 4 about Christ. Now everybody gets together to talk about the other person. Did you hear what so-and-so did? I heard Chad fixed the air conditioner on Sunday. That's just what I heard. Don't tell nobody I told you. Well, at least he come to church first. I've been known to cut a tree on Sunday here or there if I had to out of a house. Don't tell nobody. What I'm saying is, guys, let's be okay. Let's be okay with what we got in the world in my closing remarks. Let's be okay with what the world has. God's blessed us enough, right? We all look like we got our hair combed. We all look like we got decent shirts on. Our pants are washed, right? We got socks. Let's just be okay with that. Let's start growing spiritually, guys. Let's not just say that we're going to do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just step out and do it. Let's quit talking about it. We're all bad for putting things off for tomorrow. I've been supposed to get a gym membership since June. But I keep saying next Monday. Next Monday. Y'all guilty? Anybody guilty? Anybody saying next week I'm going to read all of Matthew? Next week I'm going to do it. Here it is November and you still ain't even turned to Matthew. Anybody guilty? If you are, then you're not okay with being okay. You're stuck in the world. As they come get a song.
Invite you out to church at 2353 Lima Road, Kendallville, at 11 a.m. on Sundays and 7 p.m. on Wednesdays.